Good afternoon. This is the committee meeting of the Housing Policy and Development Committee. I'm chairing the committee. I'm Cam Gordon, joined today by Council members Goodman, Reich, and Schrader. We're a quorum of the committee, so we can begin our work. I'm expecting Council member Ellison to arrive, but Council member Bender won't be joining us today. And here is Council member Ellison. Welcome. We're just starting. There are 6 items on our agenda today, 1 public hearing, 2 consent items, and 3 discussion items. I will just call out our attention to item number 4, which is listed as a discussion item, is very closely associated with item 1, which is the public hearing. So we may end up not discussing it that much, but we won't be passing it until after we get our staff presentation on this project and have the public hearing on it. So I would like to move the 2 consent items, though. The first one is the decertification of the Phillips Park Project, Hennepin and 7th Entertainment Block E, and Many Rivers East Tax Increment Financing Districts. Kind of a significant step for those of you who've paid attention to the city's history. And item 3 is to approve and authorize grant applications for the 2019 Metropolitan Council Livable Communities Demonstration Account and also their transit-oriented development grants. Anyone care to pull either of those items? Seeing no one, I will then move approval. Please say aye if you are in approval. Aye. Those opposed, say no. Motion carries. And then we'll move to our first item, which is the public hearing on the Redwell Project Tax Increment Financing. And before we open it for the public hearing, we will get a staff report.
Good afternoon, Chair Gordon, members of the committee. The Redwell is a 109-unit apartment building proposed by Schaefer Richardson in the North Loop neighborhood. All of the units will be affordable at 60% AMI or below. Schaefer Richardson did also secure 22 project-based vouchers, and those 22 units will be available to households at 30% AMI or less. The total residential development cost is approximately $29 million, and the primary financing for this project is housing revenue bonds through Hennepin County. Equity in the project includes $2.4 million in general partner cash and $2.2 million in deferred developer fee. Schaefer Richardson has requested $2.5 million in tax increment financing to support the housing development. So the TIF plan was transmitted for public review on March 21st, and no comments were received. Right now, the timeline for the project is that it would close and construction would start next month in June, and then construction would be complete in fall of 2020. So there are 2 actions related to this project before you today. The first action is approval of the TIF plan and financing, and the second action is a resolution approving the Hennepin County HRA to issue housing revenue bonds for the project. A representative from Schaefer Richardson is here today and can speak to the project if you like. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see any questions, and if you really want to comment, you can comment, but you don't have to, because I think everybody understands the project fairly well, and this is the final approval for the tax increment financing plan. But before we can vote on that, I would like to open the public hearing. So thank you for the presentation. And if there's anybody here who would like to speak on this matter, the public hearing is now open, and could you please step forward? Seeing no one then, I'm assuming nobody has signed in. I will close the public hearing then, and I will move approval of this. I'd like to move item 1 and item 4 at the same time, if that is all right. We just heard a little bit about item 4, which had to do with the application with the, well, I don't have it in front of me, but the, thank you very much. Approval of the Hennepin County Housing Redevelopment Authority to undertake the project. Anybody have any question or comment on that? Seeing none, then all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Those motions carry. Now we can move on to our discussion items. We've already dispensed with the first discussion item. Next item is our Homeline contract. And this is, would be, we're considering authorizing a one-year basic service agreement with Homeline. And I thought maybe before we voted on that, we could just get a quick update about the past contract and the work that's been done. I think we did this last year as well, and I think it helps us understand more about what the residents are facing in terms of housing in our city. So welcome. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Chair Gordon, members of the committee. My name is Dean Porter Nelson. I'm a housing stability specialist within CPED's housing team. And so I just wanted to share a little bit about the process and kind of where we're at today regarding this potential agreement with Homeline. So the city did issue an RFP for renter legal advice and referrals. We did receive one response to that RFP, which was from Homeline. And so staff from housing and staff from regulatory services both reviewed that response to the RFP from Homeline, and we are recommending that the Housing Policy and Development Committee authorize a one-year basic service agreement with Homeline, and that would be in an amount not to exceed $125,000 per year. And then we would also recommend that the committee authorize annual extensions to this contract for up to 4 one-year terms, subject to annual appropriation and satisfactory performance to city staff. And so we do have Eric Hauge from Homeline here today, and he would be interested in presenting and sharing a little bit about their work over the past year and their new proposed work under this contract. Would that be of interest to the committee?
Yes, that would be wonderful to have
Great.
a brief presentation from Mr. Hauge. I know that there's some good statistics in the staff report, but it's always good to see you and hear a little bit more about the work you've been doing.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Gordon and members of the committee, and thank you, Dean, for the introduction. I think most of you are familiar with Homeline. We've been serving City of Minneapolis since 2014, and we really appreciate the opportunity to come here and talk to you today, as well as serve renters throughout the city. A lot of this information is in your packet, but I'll go through it quickly here. So again, Homeline is a statewide nonprofit that provides free legal advice for renters. We've served Minneapolis since 2014, but we have been around since 1992. We serve the entire state now, and our primary program is a hotline that is free and confidential for any renter to contact and get legal and practical advice about their situation. As of this month, we have 17 full and part-time employees, and that includes attorneys, tenant advocates, tenant organizers, and we rely a lot on law student volunteers and interns, community volunteers. That's our hotline number and our website address where you can get advice via email from an attorney. Most folks that call us either get an advocate or an attorney on the phone right then and there, or they hear back within a few hours. We generally try to work directly with tenants, but we have a process for social workers or family members to contact us on behalf of residents. We also do a lot of education for renters and community members and landlords throughout Minneapolis and the metro area. So in 2018, 3,244 households received legal advice from us in Minneapolis. This was about a 10% increase over the past year. We generally, on average, spend about a half an hour with a client, although that can vary dramatically depending on the type of issue. And then also, especially for folks who don't speak English as a first language, we often have folks come in and we'll review leases or other types of documents. That can, and especially eviction calls and clients that are facing eviction, we work with quite a bit longer than a half an hour. This is just a breakdown of our Minneapolis client demographics in 2018. It pretty much tracks fairly consistently with previous years, as well as really in the metro area. And we don't have any sort of qualifications. Anybody can call us as long as they're a renter, but even without any sort of income guidelines, the vast majority of folks are low income who are contacting us. And then this is a map of by ward of just the number of clients served in each ward, and sort of a breakdown of, on the right, just the rank of calls by ward. And this is pretty consistent from year to year. And then this is, we try to categorize all the advice that we give to clients. So again, this is just broken down to Minneapolis. And this again is pretty consistent from previous years on the types of issues that we're advising about. So repairs is always way up there. I guess the most notable one on this list is rental license. We received a lot of calls about rental license situations, and we're pretty sure that has a lot to do with the Steve Friends situation and with those properties. And then some of the new things that we're doing in 2019, we've added Hmong language support. And so on your screen there is anybody can call our direct number, and it will, in their own language, direct them to the right language line, but we also have specific language lines in Somali, Spanish, and Hmong. And then we are working on an increased eviction prevention project in collaboration with a lot of other groups in the Polad Family Foundation. We're actually mailing information to every single defendant in Minneapolis and actually the 7-county metro area. So every defendant, every family that's facing an eviction in the 7-county metro is hearing from us, and we're encouraging them to call us to get legal and practical advice about how to what to expect at court and what sort of referrals they can get, what sort of resources they can receive. And then just the last thing I'll note is over last year, just through May of this year, we're at about a 16% increase in Minneapolis clients served. So we're definitely still seeing a lot of renters that are facing some of these issues outlined on the other slide in an increased amount this year. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, that's all I have.
I have a couple questions. So you also serve suburban areas?
We serve the entire state.
The entire state. What proportion of calls do you get from Minneapolis renters? How does it compare with, I don't know, St. Paul or surrounding area?
Minneapolis is the top #1 city. I want to say last year, it's about, St. Paul was just about maybe half of what we got from Minneapolis. The metro, greater Minnesota breakdown is about 75% metro, 25% greater Minnesota. I don't know the exact breakdown between Minneapolis.
That was good. Do you track people who call from public housing?
We do. We track, we have a very minimal intake system. We try to minimize the number of questions unless it's very relevant to their situation, because we know that people might be reluctant to answer some of those questions, even though it's confidential. But yes, we do track any type of subsidy that the caller might have if it's relevant to the situation, which in most cases it is. We do a lot of referrals to legal aid, Minnesota legal aid, especially for public housing folks, simply because those folks have very extremely low incomes, and it's very likely that they'll qualify for legal aid services in terms of representation. But we'd be able to pull a breakdown of the number of callers that have a subsidy too, if that would be helpful.
And I mostly thought of it because of the next agenda item, and I think there's some folks in here who are interested in public housing, so you could potentially even be a resource for them. I appreciate that. Are there other questions from committee members? Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not a question. I wanted to just take this opportunity to personally thank you, Eric, for the incredible work that you've been doing in my ward with displacement issues, especially in the 15, 17, 19, 15th Street building, which sadly still sits vacant and everyone was evicted, as well as the other 5 buildings in my ward that you personally intervened in to help make life better for tenants. I think Homeline is a great asset to the city, but more importantly, the fact that they promoted you to be the executive director is exactly what was needed at that time, and we are your partner, and I want to thank you for all of your work.
Thank you.
I think that's a great note to end on, and I really appreciate the partnership over these years. I know it was kind of a reach to get the first contract going, but I think you've served a lot of Minneapolis residents, and you've brought great value to us, so I look forward to that effort continuing.
Thanks for your time.
Yep, thank you. So I guess I will move approval of this, authorizing the 1-year contract and also the annual extensions for up to 4 one-year terms. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. That motion carries. Now we'll move to our last item. This is the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority appointments. And I believe Ms. Brennan is prepared to make a presentation. Councilmember Elson and I actually served together on the work group that reviewed all the applicants and worked on this consensus proposal to come forward for you today, so we can also weigh in and answer any questions you might have. I'll also note that I think that 2 of the potential appointees are with us in the audience today, and they'll have an opportunity if you want to introduce yourselves at the end. That would be fine. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Minneapolis Public Housing Authority is responsible for managing, owning, operating over 5,000 public housing units and 42 high-rise properties and 700 single-family homes in virtually every Minneapolis neighborhood, and is also responsible for operating federally subsidized housing choice voucher program, otherwise known as Section 8, for over 5,000 eligible participants in the city, among many other responsibilities. Those are 2 of the most significant responsibilities that MPHA has in our city, and is basically responsible for a large number of housing units in the city. The MPHA Board of Commissioners is the governing body of the agency. Its members are appointed by the mayor and the city council to oversee the operation of the agency, establish operating policy, and ensure operating compliance with U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development regulations. There are 5 appointments 5 open seats requiring appointments. 2 are city council appointments, and 3 are mayoral appointments that require confirmation by the city council. We recommend that the city council reappoint these are for the 2 city council appointments. We recommend that the city council reappoint Abduali Issi for a 2-year term beginning January 1, 2019 and ending December 31st, 2020. Mr. Issi is a current MPHA board member seeking a new term. Mr. Issi is a resident of public housing in a family non-high-rise. He lives in Ward 13. We also recommend that the City Council appoint a new board member, Tessa Wetjen, for an unexpired term of 1 year, beginning January 1, 2019, and ending December 31st, 2019. Ms. Wetjen has experience working with organizations that support people and families in poverty, Minneapolis Public Schools, and Minnesota Department of Health and community-based nonprofits. Ms. Wetjen has served on the city's Neighborhood Community Engagement Commission, and she is a Ward 8 resident. The 3 mayoral appointments recommended for City Council confirmation include the reappointment of Tamir Mahamud and Mikkel Beckman for new 3-year terms beginning January 1, 2019. Mr. Mahamud is a Ward 6 resident, a resident of public housing high-rise, and has served in various positions on his resident council and the Minneapolis High-Rise Representative Council. Mr. Beckman is a current MPHA board member seeking a new term. Mr. Beckman has extensive professional experience in developing and implementing activities to prevent and end homelessness in Minneapolis. Also recommended is the confirmation of the mayoral new appointment of Shamarki Issa for a 3-year term beginning January 1, 2019 and ending December 31st, 2021. Mr. Issa is also designated by the mayoral appointment as board chair of MPHA. Mr. Issa grew up in the Cedar Riverside neighborhood of Minneapolis and currently operates a small business out of the 10th Ward. So as you mentioned, Mr. Chair, 2 of the, Ms. Wetjen and Mr. Issa are here and are available to answer any questions too, and I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Thank you very much. I don't see any questions for you. And would you like to come up and address the group, Mr. Issa? Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, council members. My name is Shamarki Issa. I am greatly humbled to be given this opportunity to be appointed as the chair of the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority. I grew up in the Twin Cities. I grew up in Minneapolis, lived in the Cedar Riverside neighborhood for over 17 years, and I currently operate a small business in South Minneapolis. We have a catering business. My background is I went to school for urban and regional studies, and I have a master's in urban planning. And I'm a little nervous, and I look forward to working closely with Mr. Chairman and the council members and with the mayor's office, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Did you live in the Cedars?
Cedar Riverside neighborhood, yeah.
Did you live in public housing there?
Yeah, I lived in public housing there. I grew up in public housing, and I know the value and the importance it has for those who need it the most. And I'm excited to be able to offer my skills and services to ensure that affordable housing is available going forward. Thank you.
Well, we certainly appreciate your willingness to get involved, and I'm aware that I think you have a pretty good understanding of what you're getting yourself into here, so
Absolutely.
That shows some courage and commitment on your part. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Chairman. Thank you. Thank you, council members.
And Ms. Wetchen, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Tessa Weejan. I'm from
sorry.
South Minneapolis. And I just wanted to express my appreciation for you all for appointing me. I'm excited to work with the MPHA board and very excited for what MPHA is for our city and can continue to be. So, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Well, I will move the staff recommendation then, approving the 4 appointments. And on that motion, Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, I won't be voting for this motion today. I have a constituent who has ably served on the committee for the past 4 years, and no one told me that he wasn't being notified until about 2 hours ago. And I would guess that they probably haven't notified him either. And I think these people who are applying are awesome, and I'm thrilled you guys are going to do it. And hopefully when they bounce you off for someone else, they will tell you in advance that that's something that's happening. To serve on this board is a massive commitment of time and energy. This constituent of mine did it well, and in fact had a leadership position on the board. And so I feel like treating him the way we have on his way out the door is not acceptable, and as a result of that, I can't vote for this action today. And I would urge the chair and others to be in touch with him and at a minimum thank him for his service. He was on the board during a very difficult time when we had to have an executive director search, which was extremely difficult and very time consuming. And I feel like we don't do a very good job of thanking people who have served ably and have really no reason why we would tell him he shouldn't be on the board. So it has nothing to do with the people who are on it. It has to do with our process and how we treat the people who have served on it. And hopefully we won't make this mistake with these 2 wonderful people who have stepped forward to serve.
Well, I appreciate those comments, and I'll definitely reach out to him pending this committee action. And that there's actually, I believe, 2 people who won't be returning, so maybe we could think of a way, and I could reach out to MPHA staff how we could honor those people, and maybe with the new chair for their service, and certainly was valuable. Any other comments? Seeing none. Then on the motion to approve as recommended, all those in favor say aye. Aye. I believe that was just 4 of us. All those opposed?
Thank you. No.
Okay. All right. Well, that motion carries then. I'll also note that this evening there is a Harrison neighborhood has invited Councilmember Elson and I to a listening session on public housing, and everybody's welcome to attend that listening session. Certainly the new commissioners are as well. So I can give you more information. I don't have the address in front of me. But with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.